Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, and welcome again, Carl Richards. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hi, Carl.
So excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh, always a pleasure to have you on. I think this is definitely the second, maybe the third time that we've caught up, and I have fond memories of meeting you in London a few times, and on some cold wintry nights, and having dinner with you. So for those who can't remember or haven't listened to a previous podcast with you on, Carl, can you just do a little short introduction of who you are and your backstory?
Yeah, so the short version is I was an independent financial planner running my own firm, and I had this experience repeatedly where I would be trying to explain a concept to really smart, successful people called clients, and I would be getting blank stares back. And there was this one particular moment where it dawned on me, I can remember exactly who the clients are. It dawned on me that they were everybody I'd had this experience with was super smart and successful, but it dawned on me this time that I was like, wait, these are really smart and successful people, and they're giving me blank stares. And it dawned on me that it must be me. You know what I mean? I was like, oh no, it's not them. So out of an act of desperation, because I was trying to describe a concept that I thought was really important for them to understand in order to make the decision we were trying to make. And out of an act of desperation, I stood up. I was in a shared conference room, and there was this whiteboard. I'd never seen anybody use it. I stood up and drew like a circle and a square and an arrow. And as I recall, it was about a topic that you're familiar with, like saving for retirement, and then just turning the faucet the other direction, like accumulation, and then living off of the retirement assets. Like, so There was an arrow going one way and an arrow going the other way, right? It
Right.
wasn't that complicated. But the clients were like, oh, we get it now. Once they saw this really, rudimentary, like I wasn't a doodler in high school. I don't have any art background, as it would be obvious to anybody who sees my work. So I was like, wow, that's so surprising. I just thought I kind of got a little addicted to that feeling of the kind of clarity that could come from simplifying something in the form of really clear writing, or in this case, a visual. So I did it again. I didn't make any grand conclusion. I just did it again. And then I did it again, and I did it again. And after a couple of years of that, I'd started putting them up on early internet blogs, and one thing led to another, and the New York Times asked me to do it for them. And I did that. I did that column once a week for a decade, and that led to the books, and that's led to this most recent book. So that's a little bit of history.
Yeah. I mean, just picking up on that one thing, 10 years, right? Doing a sketch. I mean,
every week for a decade.
Did you ever on, I don't know what night or day it went out, but did you ever get to kind of the midnight the night before going, what on earth am I going to draw?
Yeah. No, this is actually interesting. I think for your listeners as well. Not even the night before. Sometimes I remember I had to get it in at like 10 a.m. or something on Thursdays, as I recall. And there was a lot of days where I was just like, I don't know what to do. And what was so interesting to me, that sometimes the ones where I was like, oh, nailed this. This is the best thing I've ever done, were greeted with silence, like, they ran them. But, and then sometimes the ones where I was like, I got nothing today, I guess and I was like, I remember even putting him on the Fujitsu snap scanner and hitting send to my editor and thinking, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to say, sorry, the column was called The Sketch Guy. He was like, I just imagined this email coming back like, the sketch guy's over. Often those were the ones that did the best. And so I learned from that to kind of fire myself from the job of deciding whether my work was good or not. Like I'm the last person on the planet who should have that job. You know, like
Right.
you're very bad at that job. Like, of course you have standards, but so anyway, yeah, there was plenty of those moments where I was like, what? Oh boy, I hope this works. And you know, there were plenty that, you know, when you do it for 10 years, there's 500 of them there. I mean, if I've got 100 great ones, that's a pretty good batting average, I guess.
Yeah. I can just imagine you kind of surrounded by scrumpled up pieces
That's
of
exactly
paper.
right. Over my shoulder. It was a stack of cardstock and a Sharpie, and I would just be like, no. It's much easier now with the iPad.
Yeah.
At least I don't have to throw anything.
Of course. So this brings us to your latest book, which I've had the fascinating opportunity to read it early, and of course it is now out in all good bookstores. Your Money and 101 sketches explaining, you know, your emotions around money. Tell me more about the kind of inspiration for it.
Yeah, so my last book came out 11 years ago, and I've been almost every month saying no. You know, like to agent or publisher, just like, no, I don't want to, no. Because mainly I was focused on conversations. I was having so many great conversations, and it just sort of happened about that time in history that, you know, like podcasts and, you know, became a thing. And so I was really enjoying that and thought like, I'll probably never write another book. And then what I noticed was, and we've noticed this for as long as this work's been going on for me, that people send us these emails that will say, hey, I printed this sketch out and I pinned it to the bulletin board at work, or I taped it to my fridge at home. And what I noticed in these emails was nobody ever said like it's visually beautiful or it was striking or it's a piece of art. What they said was, you wouldn't believe the conversation that started between me and a coworker, or the conversation that started with my daughter. And I was like, okay, super interesting. My whole career at this point is about conversations, meaningful conversations about like what it means to live a rich and meaningful life. And I was like, well, maybe a book, especially in the physical form that we did it at, you know, it's like for your YouTube folks, it's 7x7. It's soft cover finish. So they wanted to do hardback and I wanted to be less pretentious than that. So it's this beautiful matte finish. It's really meant to be, and then on the back, I even say this is not a book. It's a conversation grenade. Like throw it in a room and conversations will break out. And so that's kind of why I did it was, there's something nice about like, hey, look at this, you know, like the physical nature of it, sitting on the coffee table in the foyer, you know, being passed around, like that's kind of what I'd hoped would happen.
Yeah. So I'd like to come to a few of the sketches that have jumped out of me that I'd like to discuss with you.
Yeah.
The first one is you've got a text by the side of every sketch, and this one you've titled "Actively Doing Nothing." And you know, I have this conversation. It's kind of, even I feel as an advisor, I feel some kind of fraud about it, some kind of, you know, how can I really sit there and say, we should just not do anything.
Right.
We should stick to the plan. We should not mess with this, you know, and there's an element where you feel that because everything in life, we generally get rewarded the harder we work. You know, if I want to get really physically fit, I go to the gym and I really go at it. If I want to have a amazing career, I put lots of energy and talent into that. If I want a great relationship, I've really got to work at that. There's very few things that that actively doing nothing. And your sketch starts at the statement lazy, and then a box with lots of hard work, and then another arrow going confidently doing nothing. And it beautifully expresses this statement of not doing anything. But even so, I still feel this kind of terror whenever I say to anyone, you know, the investment piece is actually not that clever.
Yeah, no, it's you're pointing to a fundamental tension in at least the investment part of a great financial plan. is that, on the other side, like on the other side of lots of hard work is the ability to confidently do nothing. And I wanted to capture, I work really hard at this language. Like the title of this essay is actively doing nothing. And the implication here is that like it turns out, and let me just throw in we got to have at least one Warren Buffett quote. He's got a lot of quotes, but my favorite one was the hallmark. Just listen to this. The hallmark of our investment strategy is benign neglect bordering on sloth. So it turns out, and you're pointing to this fundamental tension. It's like, get in there and fix it, right? Like we all know this, like good work ethic, like I can be better than average. I can do this. But it turns out that a well-crafted portfolio designed around your values and goals, and then success would mean do nothing for 20 years. And so the paradox is it's actually a lot of work to confidently do nothing. Right? And if you pay for advice, you should actually gladly pay someone when they tell you to do nothing, when nothing is the right thing to do. And you're so often, like if you're not invested, I often refer to it as like investing like an adult, right? If you're not invested like an adult, this doesn't apply, right? You got to figure things out, like, and it's not going to work. We all know that. But if we get invested based on the weighty evidence of history, it turns out that that's a lot of work to understand someone well enough to feel confident that as a client. It's a lot of work to feel confident that you have been thoroughly diagnosed by your advisor. They understand that they get you, they know where you want to go, right? They've diagnosed before they wrote the prescription. But if you feel that way, on the other side of that is the ability to benign neglect bordering on sloth. And I kind of I wish there was a way to make this cool. And that's what I was working on, like actively doing nothing. Like I wish there was a t-shirt that was like, I'm lazy, so you should be too. Or like when it comes to investing, we should celebrate actively and confidently doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get there.
It really works. And it's a beautiful concept. And I explained it this morning with a client, and I said, I kind of was, we've had very positive returns in our stock markets, haven't we, over the last 10 years? And there's a danger when that happens for us to become kind of a recency bias of just kind of expecting that to continue to happen.
Yeah.
And in the words of Nick Murray, our kind of run the lifeboat drill, we hope that we never need the lifeboat, but just, I back tested the equity portfolio that I have clients in, and just said, look, let's just look back in history and just understand there were periods of decline, and by the way, it's really good news, and by the way, it's really good because first of all, I've seen you haven't looked at your account once this year since your last review. And secondly, when you came in, you were curious about what the number is and pleasantly surprised.
Right.
Now, this to me is an educated, well-placed client. They've absolutely done the right thing, and they've just gone, let's see.
I love it. Can I just say something about that real quick? Because I love that. What you're pointing to too is there's a whole nother layer of value that was just delivered. You got your life back. Not only is it the right way to invest, there's a side benefit, which should be the main benefit, of course. The side benefit is you get your life back. Like, think of all the time you were spending worrying about that or thinking about that. We had a client once who tracked how much time he spent, that he tracked how much time he used to spend, that he was no longer spending. It was 4 hours a week. If I do my math right, that's 208 hours a year. If you count on being asleep a certain number of times, it was something like 11 days. He told me this. He was like, you've given me back 11 days of my life, a year. He's like, I'm going to spend a couple at work, but mostly I'm going to use those with the kids.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant. Right, let me turn to the next beautiful sketch, which you've called the spending practice. And this is, again, another thing that really interests me is that you've got your values and an arrow coming around at the bottom where you say you're spending, and then you're spending linking back to your values.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love it, and I want you to unpack it, but the statement "your values" they're easy 2 words, but actually,
Yeah.
unpack those.
Yeah. Yeah. That to me is the primary work of real financial planning. Like the alignment later, like when we start to align your use of money with those values, that is technically rather simple, right? The really challenging thing is to get clear about what we really care about. And this is how many people wake up in their 45, early 50s and say, this is one of the most common conversations I'm having lately. 45 to 55-year-old men generally, because they're talking to me, and they say they look around quietly and they show some evidence of having won, like a balance sheet or an income statement. And then they look around to make sure no one's listening, and they say, "Hey, is this all it was for?" And what I'm pointing to there is it's so easy for all of us to live someone else's life, to live somebody else's goals. My mom, my dad, my brother-in-law, my sister, Instagram, like everybody else has a bunch of goals for us. So getting clear about what we really care about. And one thing I love about spending is that it gives you a chance to practice that 3 to 5 times a day. And some of those things are like the utility bills. Okay, right? Like it's pretty neutral, right? But I can make some decisions each time I spend. And again, I think the problem with like traditional budgeting and even cash flow management is it's all built around shame or pain, or like I'm going to flick myself in the wrist with a rubber band if I spend, or the language is all. I mean, Justin, imagine this. Imagine you have a friend who is the first friend you ever had in your life, and you still see them daily. You still see them every day. And every time you see them, you feel bad about yourself. Right? Like that is spending's role in money, right? It's typically our first interaction with money when we're young. Most of us, our first interaction is spending. And it's still the most frequent way we interact with money. I mean, we see our investments here and there, but we spend 3 to 5 times a day. We pull out that card or the phone. And if every time we do it, we either feel apathy because we've got enough money that we don't care, like it's indifference or apathy, or we feel bad. Either one of those are not great ways to have a relationship with something. And so I'm just suggesting, like, I think your listeners should be the best spenders in the world. They should be world class at it. And the way we do that is we get clear about what matters. We want to spend to the degree that our budget would allow us to. We want to spend lavishly on the things that bring us joy and contribution and a sense of meaning, which is often on others, by the way, right? And we want to cut ruthlessly on the stuff that doesn't. And the key there you're pointing to, the key is like learning to notice which one is which. One's an expense. The other is an investment.
Yeah.
And just practice.
Yeah.
That's why I call it the spending practice. It's like anything that we're not good at. How do you get better? Just practice gently. Like, give yourself grace. Don't worry. If you notice, like when you go to the coffee shop and you pay for your friend and you feel a little shame or ego or put out a little bit, or you notice that you're going to take the family on a trip and you're complaining. How many of us have done that? Let's take the family on the dream trip and then complain the whole time about how much it's costing. Like, why not get full value? You're spending the money anyway. Why not get full value? So that's I think all we have to do is start noticing that a little bit. And then when we notice that we're behaving in a way that doesn't work, make subtle shifts.
Yeah. Great. Wise words, Carl. Wise words. My next sketch that I love is Spend the Money. And it kind of follows on a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
But it's but it's kind of that classic Venn diagram. You've got people you love, experiences, and that intersection of this is probably where you need to be allocating your money.
Spend the money.
And I think especially for people in our listeners in Retirement Cafe that, you know, they've got to that point, and you know, so often it's well, again, my client this morning they enjoy the last few years of spending the money going to Italy to see family. They have Italian family, and they've done it lots, but the Italian family, their generation, is now either departed or in care and incapable of really, you know, having much communication with them any longer. But they have done it, you know. So they know that period of their life is now probably over. But I'm so glad that they did it whilst they could do it, because, you know, inevitably lots of these experiences or opportunities for the people you love and to do the things that you really enjoy are fleeting. You know, if you don't grasp them and don't take opportunity to spend the money on it whilst you can. And it's not about the money, of course. It's about the people that you love and the experience of being able to go and visit them. They took that opportunity whilst they could.
So good. Yeah, so good. You're right. Like it only takes, and we've all had this experience where somebody close to us passes away, and we think like, I'm going to stop postponing living my life, you know, and then we get back in the grind and we kind of forget. And I just think that, and especially like your clients and your listeners, they've probably been successful because they've had some traits that were probably even involved discipline and frugality, maybe delaying gratification, you know, and then you get to a spot where those exact traits were very, very useful for you the past 30 or 40 years. And they're actually, maybe I'm going to use this gently, right? Like maybe they're holding you back from some of the things. Like you've been delaying gratification for a long time. It's time to stop delaying it. And, you know, we have a mutual friend named Alan that shares this story about having a client that moved from Wales to Argentina. Sorry, all of her ancestors a bunch of her ancestors had moved, and she'd always wanted to go see the Pumas against the Welsh national team in Argentina, right? But she put it off and she put it off. She said she couldn't, and she was finally like, I can't go do this. It's too expensive. And Alan was like, you could go every year for the rest of your life and it would be fine. And she's like, I can't sit that long on a plane. You could have a lay down bed every year for the rest. Like, it's fine. And she finally went. Like your Italian experience, like it's the same thing. You hear these stories, you're like, so we know at the end of our lives, the things we will regret it's just trite to even say it anymore. Like you can't take the money with you. You won't regret more time you won't wish you had more time responding to emails. You'll regret the things you didn't do with the people you love. And by the way, these things don't have to be expensive, but they might be. So I'm just saying, if you've got a thing that you've always thought like, we'll do that someday. And your financial plan says, do it. Then, okay, what do we do? Just practice. So it's back to practice spending the money. Like get comfortable spending a little bit of money to the degree that you're able to. And some of that money I pointed to this earlier, some of the most rewarding things you could possibly do is spend money on other people, right? Like in the form of giving and contribution in your community. Why not now?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So my final sketch, because I could, you know, I could talk to you about every single one, which would just be fantastic. But, you know,
that was the goal of the book.
We'll have to leave something to people to buy the book, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Days or decades, right? Yeah. This is this real conflict of all the kind of, you know, in the US, you are suffering the same. I don't know whether you're aware of the massive political noise that we've got going on in the UK. I mean, it's just a
Really?
cacophony of just, yeah. And of course, in the US, you have something very similar going on.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being worse anywhere else. But yeah,
I know. It's funny, isn't it? It's funny on that basis. And in fact, you're probably aware, but I'm just reading Ryan Holiday's, I don't know if you can see it, new book, Wisdom Takes Work, and he talks about the Roman emperors and Cato and Nero and Marcus Aurelius and the noise is still going on then,
Yeah.
The decline of the Roman Empire, and they're trying to save it, and it's
right.
You kind of suddenly realize that actually it is just history repeating itself in another in another ecosystem.
Right.
But it is hard, isn't it? Because we're consumed. However much we try and defend ourselves from this, noise around us, and kind of go, this is not the important stuff. The long term is the important stuff. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is. And there's so much working because you feel like it's important to be informed. But here's an exercise I've been playing lately. Like, try to think back to the last time you read a headline, something in the news, and then you acted on it. Like, we'll just narrow it down specifically about your money. Like, the last time you read headline about your money, you acted on it, and later you were glad that you did. I've been asking that question for 15 years. I've only gotten one person who was like, I got one, and it was about a tax law change. And granted, that makes sense, but mostly it really, like, the question I've been asking, right? So we know that if you look at your portfolio daily, you will be disappointed 46% of the time or something, right? Like, because 46%, something like that, don't quote me on the exact numbers, 45-ish% of the days are down, right? But if you look at it over months, that number goes up. If you look at it over a quarter, that number goes up. If you look at it annually, you're going to be happy most years. And so looking at it daily is voluntarily signing up to be punished. Like, it just doesn't make much sense. And other than maybe it's entertainment for you, maybe it's important at the workplace to feel informed. I don't know. There could be other reasons. Like, some people go to the circus, other people watch CNBC. Like, okay, I can buy that argument maybe. But I have a friend so my daughter recently pulled the plug on all news and Instagram, all social media. And she subscribed to 3 really important magazines. One of them comes twice a month. And then I've got another friend who did the same thing, but now he gets 2 newspapers a day. And he reads the newspaper, but he doesn't go online. The difference between reading, I'm just going to say this out loud, the difference between the New York Times homepage and the print is about 500% anxiety. You know what I mean? Like, 500% difference. Like, the print is not, it doesn't flash at you. It doesn't, and then I got one more example. So one of my friends said, no more online news. I just get the newspaper and I read the newspaper. One more example. And this one's my favorite. I was just listening to somebody talk about how they don't read any news ever. And if there's any important event, they know they'll hear about it from friends. They write it down, and they figure if it's of any historical importance, there will be a book about it a year later when it's all settled. They only get their news in the form of books, which I love because there's been time, thought put into that, and so they get their news in the form of books. And I'm like, if you really think about it carefully, like, when has it ever helped? Like, has it ever helped? It's informed me about a bunch of stuff that may not even matter to me, but if it does matter to me, it's almost always out of my control anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I like. It turns out we can choose to look at the news. Every person I've got to do this, myself included, notices a very, very strong increase in well-being. Very, like, turn your phone off for a couple of days, you will feel better. I mean, for a first day, you might feel anxious and worried, but after a little while, you just start to feel better. It's a good sign to me. This is a fight worth having, to be honest. Like, this is something we're fighting for. getting back to being human connection. I think, Justin, you didn't ask for this, but I'm going to tell you, I think that we're not many years away from two classes of humans, one embodied in the world and one in a screen. And all of your listeners, like next time you're out about traveling in a restaurant, just look around. It's shocking. And I'm as guilty as anybody, because there's 300 PhDs on the other side of that bet with me, right? Like working at Facebook, trying to get me drawn into Instagram. But I think it's worth saying, like, hey, not only am I going to stop focusing on days, social media, like I'm going to start focusing on seconds and hours.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to elongate my view of the recent past so I can make better decisions.
And fascinating, just coming back to, again, the conversation I had this morning with these clients. When I told them their returns, which were for a well-diversified portfolio, I think they were up 8.5% or 9% on the 12 months they've been invested. And our target over the long term was to beat inflation, which is what it's managed to do. Keep the real cost of their money growing against what they're spending. Yeah. But when they said, well, so they went, where have those returns come from? Because, of course, they have been consuming the news. But all the news, of course, is all about bad news. Yeah. So they haven't learned that the share prices are going up. They haven't learned that we've got new technologies emerging into the world that are very exciting, and people are making great advances in society with these things. They've just heard all the bad stuff. So they're sitting there, and because they've been so well behaved by not looking at their portfolios, they're also kind of then confused. It's like, well, hold on, this can't work, surely, because we've just had a year of bad news. So how on earth have we made money? They were coming in expecting, to be 25% down.
So wild. Let me just point
to
one.
It's a fascinating, dichotomy again, isn't it?
Totally. I remember listening to. Do you remember the video game Farmville?
No.
It was like a game you played on your phone. Maybe it was, right. But it was a huge game in the U.S. and they had made they're just incredible. And I remember listening to an interview with the head designer of the game Farmville. And the interviewer said, what design principle did you use to make this game so fun for people to play? And he looked confused and said, we didn't design for fun. We designed for anxiety. People know that if I can make you feel anxious, fearful, scared, worried, you will keep checking the news. And guess what? I will make more money because I can sell advertising dollars against it. He was like, no, we know if we keep you anxious, you'll return to the game. And I almost feel like I get a little ranty about this, just because like it feels to me like this is an important conversation for us to be having about what it means to live a meaningful life, and start to create a little bit of space to even be asking these questions, to contribute on the local level, to align our spending with what's important to us, to spend the money with the people that we love, right? Like I think all of those require us to get out of, to use an overused metaphor, out of the matrix and figure out like, what was it for me? Like the Saturday evening in the pub with my mates, right? Like 10 years ago, nobody had their phones in there. Now everybody does. Like it's losing its feeling, right? Listening to David White talk about the Irish pub life and how emotional patina, right? The feeling you've been coming there for 20 years. And like, that's what life's about. Not checking your portfolio every week.
No. Or your Instagram or TikTok, I would say.
Exactly.
Anyway.
All the things. This has been so fun, Justin.
Yeah, really enjoyed talking to you again, Carl, and catching up. I look forward to hopefully seeing you again in the flesh one day soon. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for yet again another wonderful book. We will be pressing it into the hands of many clients, and I really do recommend for all the listeners and watchers out there, get yourself a copy. Thanks so much, Carl.
Cheers, Justin. Thank you.